Welcome back to the Be Friend course. Today we're going to go over 4 powerful questions you can ask in any one-on-one conversation. These questions can make all of your conversations memorable if used properly. While sharing all 4, I will go over how to properly use them and also why they work, with an additional 2 tips at the end of the video, so make sure you watch till the very end. We'll start with the easiest question to use, which is how does it feel? Basically, when someone gives you information or tells you a story, you ask them to elaborate on how it felt. For example, I recently met someone who left his home country to become a digital nomad for the first time. When he told me this, I asked him, well, how does it feel to be away from home for the first time? Now, there are 2 reasons why this simple question is so powerful. First, it shows them that you are listening very carefully to their story, to the point where you care to ask them to elaborate. And second, it prompts them to share their emotions with you, which is one of the best ways to build rapport, right? You don't usually share how you felt traveling for the first time with a total stranger. You usually save that for family members and close friends. With strangers, we usually only share what we've done, not how something made us feel. Moving on, we have the assumption. Now, this isn't really a question. An assumption is made when you guess something about the other person. For example, if you're talking about family, you can say something like, you seem like you're an only child. When you make an assumption like this, people will usually respond to it as if it were a question. If it's true that they were an only child, they'll respond with something along the lines of, yeah, but how did you know? Or if it isn't true, they'll say something like, no, I do have siblings, but why did you think I'm an only child? Assumptions are powerful because if you guess correctly, it makes it seem like you're some sort of psychic, like you're paying such close attention that you can see into their soul, which is extremely memorable because it's very rare to come across people who pay such close attention. And if you guess incorrectly, it causes the other person to respond with a question, which gives you a chance to take the conversation deeper. In the example from before, if I guessed wrong and they asked me why I thought they were an only child, I could say something like, well, you seem very confident, like you're used to doing things alone. This is extremely powerful because I'm throwing in a little compliment and I'm stacking it with another assumption. And on top of all of that, I'm giving them the opportunity to share some type of story. If honing your social skills by mastering the art of storytelling is something that you're interested in, I'd like to introduce you to today's sponsor, Skillshare. Skillshare is an online learning community with thousands of classes with topics ranging from things like storytelling, animating, and they even have career-focused classes too. If you want to improve your social skills, you should learn how to tell amazing stories. My storytelling class covers that and much more, and it's available on Skillshare. On Skillshare, you can learn just about any skill for a fraction of the cost of what it would take to learn that skill in real life. The first 1,000 of my viewers to join through the link in the description box below will get a 1-month trial of Skillshare for free today. I also recommend that you check out Real Productivity, How to Build Habits That Last. This class by Thomas Frank teaches you how to build habits and deal with the obstacles that inevitably come up. This class will help you start winning life. Now back to the topic at hand. The third question on our list is, have you ever? This is a good question that can be used early on in an interaction with someone new. You can ask simple things like, have you ever tried a certain food? Or have you ever been to a certain place? But personally, I prefer to go much deeper. I like to use, have you ever thought? Because what interests me the most about people is how they think. So for example, oftentimes when I'm at a rooftop bar with someone new, I'll look out at the city below and ask them, have you ever thought about jumping? Now, this is a pretty risky ask because you're potentially shifting the conversation to a very touchy subject, and some people are not comfortable with sharing such things. But most of the time, people are cool with it, and the conversation can go pretty deep. I've had people tell me intense stories about hardships they had to deal with that caused them to have such thoughts. It's stories like these that make the interaction unforgettable. Now, of course, there are less risky things to ask, such as, have you ever thought about having kids? Or have you ever thought about where you'll be in 5 years? Questions like these are all pretty good. And finally, the last question on my list today is, what's the story? I usually use this to point out something that I've noticed about the other person. For example, a really easy one to do is, if the person you are talking to has tattoos, you can easily ask them something like, so what's the story behind that tattoo? If they don't have something as obvious as a tattoo, you could point out an article of clothing or a scar or even something they believe in. This is a good question because it directly prompts the other person to share a story with you. And as we know from previous lessons in the Be Friend course, the more stories someone shares with you, the closer they will feel with you. Because the truth of the matter is, there aren't actually many people in our lives that we share many stories with. Now, there are 2 more tips that I want to mention before we wrap this up. The first is in regards to how often we should be asking these types of of questions. The rule of thumb is don't ask the same type of question back to back, and also don't ask too many questions without spacing things out with normal comments. The second tip is that you must be genuine. You must have a genuine desire to find out the answers to your questions. You can't be asking them just because you watched a YouTube video that says these are good questions to ask. You must be genuinely curious about the other person so that your body language reflects it. If you don't know how to do this, you're probably too much in your head worrying about what they think of you. I hope this video was helpful. Make sure to watch the other videos in the Befriend course. And besides that, guys, stay tuned.